Hey crafty friends, today we are going to make a Egyptian birthday card using the Egyptian mask die from Scrappy Boy Stamps. Here's the die, that's the card we're going to be making. We're also going to be using the Egyptian background stamp as well as the Cleopatra pattern paper pad, the Cleopatra stamp set for our sentiment, and our stitch nested rectangle dies. As far as cardstock and everything, you're going to need an A2 card base. It can be top folding or side folding. I'm going to do top folding. You're going to need a scrap of black cardstock for our sentiment, a piece of teal or blue cardstock for the decorative parts of our mask. And it's 5 1/4 by 5 1/4. I've cut these a little bit bigger than what you really need. We're going to need a piece of gold foil that's 4 by 8.5. A piece of black cardstock that's 4 1/4 by 5 1/4. And a piece of white cardstock that is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Lord of mercy, that's a mouthful, guys. So we need our Cleopatra paper pad. And we have a few choices we can make for our background. For this one, I chose the hieroglyphic background paper, which we're probably going to use that same paper today. But I also noticed that would be a good pattern you could use, as well as probably that one. You just want something kind of light. The white would be okay. It may work. And the green would be pretty too. I think we might use the green. No, I'm gonna use the same thing. I was tempted, y'all. I was tempted. Okay, before we get started on that, let me move that our card out of the way. I've already placed the background stamp in the MISTI. So we are going to take and attach just removable adhesive on the back of this and kind of press that into place. And then I'm going to prep that cardstock with our anti-static powder tool, or with my anti-static powder tool, because we are going to do some heat embossing. So I'm going to stamp using a watermark ink. Just any embossing ink would work. I'm going to stamp the whole thing on that background. So I'm going to go ahead and give that a good press. And if I need to ink it up again, I can. We'll go ahead and do it one more time just to be safe. So I'm just going to press that down really good. There we go. All right, I've got my heat tool heating up. I've got some gold embossing powder. And I'm going to use the same one for my sentiment as well. I'm just going to cover my background panel. All right, now you see some powder still on there, just straight. That's fine. I don't need it to be perfect because that's actually going to add to the age that I'm wanting to add to this. So we're going to heat set that. We're going to heat set from the back as well to help minimize any warping. All right, I'm going to set this to the side, and I'm going to go ahead and stamp my outside sentiment onto my little scrap piece of black cardstock. That way I can do these die cutting all at the same time. We can get all of our die cutting out of the way. We're going to do our happy birthday as well. So I'll go ahead and pick that up. And I will grab my powder tool. And we will heat emboss that with or stamp that with our clear ink. All right, we're going to use our same gold embossing powder. This is just a super fine embossing powder. For the sentiment, same one I used on the background. And I will heat set that as well. And that's all of our embossing done. So I can set that to the side, let that cool, and we will start working on our die cuts. All right, for our pattern paper, I'm going to cut it with the nested stitched nested rectangle die, and I'm going to use the largest one. And I'm just going to pick where I want it to be and just kind of make sure it's lined up. And don't be afraid, those other pieces are not going to go to waste. So we're going to cut our background piece out. So there's our background panel. I'm going to save that. We're going to use a piece of that for the inside of our card. For our sentiment, we're going to use the next to smallest stitched rectangle. So we'll go ahead and run that through. All right, we're going to cut out the rest of our pieces. We're going to start with our teal piece. Let me grab our Egyptian mask. All right, this is all of our decorative pieces for this. We're going to need our decorative piece for the headdress, the necklace, the other part of the necklace here. All get cut out in this color. So we'll run that through. Now, there are tons of little bitty pieces here. You could cut these out of multiple colors and inlay them. I'm not going to do that. I am absolutely too lazy for that. Pieces go everywhere. I'm just going to pop all those little pieces out. All right, now we have our white piece of cardstock. That's going to be our largest die, outside die. So it's going to be our largest shadow die. So we'll run that through. And if you don't want to watch all the die cutting, I will try to remember to put timestamps in the video description so you can skip ahead to see the assembly part after. But I make no promises that I will remember to do that. All right, our stitched layer is our black piece of cardstock. And now our gold cardstock is everything else. So we have our last shadow layer, or last outline layer. We have the mask, his little beard, the top of the crown, and I forgot to cut the eyes again. So I will cut that off camera to save us a little bit of time. So I'm gonna run this through. All right, I have everything cut. So we're gonna start off by layering our pieces up. Now, on this piece, which I thought would be cute, but I'm not gonna do it. But I thought I might make another one and do it, was to distress the edges with some distress ink and darken that up. I think that could be really pretty, but we're gonna keep everything kind of simple today. So we've got our card base. We'll go ahead and add our pattern paper to that. Now the largest die, rectangle die, it cuts it to a very thin margin on your card front. So you have that very thin white border. All right, now we're gonna layer up our pieces for our Egyptian mask. We're gonna layer our black stitch layer onto our white shadow layer. And we're just gonna line that up using these points right here as a guide. That was the easiest way I found to do that. Now we'll take and add our gold foil layer. And we're gonna use that same guide for that. So there's that. All right, now you're gonna want a pair of reverse tweezers because it's gonna make it super easy. You want to lay down your pieces here. especially our top of our mask, the headdress. Because these two pieces actually tuck under the headdress a little bit. And they are a little bit different sizes. One's just slightly bigger than the other. So I'm going to take the largest one first, which is this one. You can tell once you really get looking at them. And then I'm going to add just very fine dots of glue. Now you could add adhesive backing, the little double-sided adhesive sheets before you had done that part, before you did your die cutting. And if you want to just use that as stickers, or if you have a Xyron, use that. So I'm going to kind of look where it needs to go and place that down. Double check it. And we'll do our second one. And since I'm working with liquid adhesive and gold foiled cardstock, I'm trying to be super careful and not move anything that I don't have to. Check that right there. I'll move that and press that into place. As I said, that I knew it. I knew that would happen, y'all. All right, so we're just going to press that down. Now we're going to do our headdress. So we're going to add tiny bits of adhesive in here. I will speed this up or edit it out so you don't have to watch me add adhesive to the entire back thing. All right, I got all the glue on there. We're going to go ahead and carefully layer this into place, following our outline at the top. Try not to have to move it, but if I do, it will be okay. But wait. All right, we're going to add the necklace next, and this is how I found was easier, was just go in between each of those little triangles. We're going to layer that on, kind of just center it up. I'm going to pop a block on there for a second. And we just kind of helped it dry a little bit. All right, now we're going to take the headdress part, the top of the headdress, just was right here, and we're going to add that. And we're just going to add that with just liquid glue. If you need to turn it a little bit better, where you can get that angle just right, go right ahead. So it needs to line up right along this top edge right here, right along your the top of his headpiece. All right, I'm going to take some thin foam squares, and I'm going to add a couple behind the cobra part of the headdress. I'm going to add this right in the center, just like that. And I'm also going to add those same thin foam squares right behind the mask part of the headdress. And fun fact, well, it could be a fun fact, I actually studied, in one of my art history classes, we studied the Egyptian culture a lot. And it was super fascinating. So we'll go ahead and pop those backings off. I'm going to add just a little liquid glue to my foam squares so I can move them around just a little bit. Now I'm going to snug this right up, right into that headdress. All right, for his little beard, I'm going to add a couple foam squares to it. Still that same dimension that I've been using. And this is going to get tucked right up under his chin. And if you look real close right there to the dot, there's a little line. You want to kind of tuck it right in there. All right, now we're going to do his eyes. Or her eyes. I'm going to add a couple little dots of liquid adhesive. And I will pick up one of the eyes, carefully lay it into place. The other eye, make sure it's turned the right direction. I'm going to move that just a little bit. All right, now we have the little eyebrows. So we're going to be very strategic and add just very, very thin little bitty dots of glue along that. And I'm going to place that into place and try not to move it. And the eyebrows as well, there is a front and a back, and you can really tell because the front is actually a little bit more rounded. So let's try to get those even. We don't need them to have some wonky eyebrows. I'm going to add just a little highlight here, because that onyx would actually have a little bit of sparkle to it, so we were going to see that. Now I can take and add adhesive to the back. And we're going to add that to our card front, just centering it. I'm going to pop on that block for a minute, let that adhesive dry. All right, now we're going to add our sentiment to the front. So I'm going to add it off to the right hand side. And I want it to be right there, but I'm going to add a couple foam squares to the back of that. But I'm going to add a little bit thicker ones than what we've been using so that everything is even. So I'm going to need one right there. And we'll need another one right down there. All right, I'm going to peel these backings off. Pick those up with my tweezers. We'll add liquid glue to the rest of it. And little dots there and there. And we're going to line this up right up against that edge of our card front. Hold it up, make sure we're nice and even. All right, now we're going to work on the inside of our card. So I'm going to open my card up. I'm going to add it into the MISTI. We're going to add our inside sentiment and one of the Cleopatras from the stamp set. I'm going to add her down close to the bottom. And the sentiment we're going to add is the Nile ain't just a river in Egypt. So I'm going to do that right, nestled right in there. So pick those up. And I'm going to stamp on the inside with some peacock feather ink, distress oxides. So I want it to match the card on the outside as well. So ink this up really good. And I'll stamp this down. And then we'll go ahead and stamp that a second time to get any places that we missed. All right, now remember the little strip that we have from the beginning? We're going to add this to the inside as well for our final finishing touch to our card. So we're just going to add a little bit of glue, and I'm going to put it right up against that score line, but not going past it, because if you do, your card is not going to close very well. So I'm just going to add it up just barely at the edge. And there is my card. We're going to go ahead and flip that over, trim off this bottom right there, so that everything is nice and adhered. So here's a look at the finished card. Look at all that nice, shiny, sparkling. You know, beautiful happy birthday card. There's our inside. And here is a look at the first version. All right, I hope you liked this video. If you did, give it, you're probably gonna like the one coming up right over there. I'll see you over there in that video. Bye guys, stay crafty, love you.